Welcome, everybody. I'm Professor Gail Whiteman from the University of Exeter Business School. I'm also the founder of Arctic Base Camp, which is a science communication platform. And we do a lot of different things on climate mitigation, but increasingly looking at the adaptation demands that we know are coming because of the things that are happening in the natural systems. This session is near and dear to my heart, new apps for climate adaptation. I think that we've got a lot to learn from the four panelists, and delighted to also get comments from the audience and questions. Now, we know that leaders have been focused on climate mitigation, and we still need that, but we know increasingly in a year that has been crazy in terms of extreme weather that we need more and more climate adaptation. So the role of technology in that, both in that discussion but in that practice, is one that personally gives me hope. And I think it is both an area of value creation as well as value protection, not just for companies, but for the larger system. Now, what does climate adaptation mean? Well, a simple definition would be really the processes by which we can adapt our social, environmental, and economic system in order to create a safe space for humanity moving forward. So today's session, we're going to look at the frontier of that and novel applications. For those of you that are online, this is being live streamed. If you want to share your comments and your thoughts on social channels, use the hashtag WEF24, and I'd like to open to the panel. We have four great panelists. What can I say? Some of them I know well, especially Noiko Ishii, who is the Executive Vice President of University of Tokyo and also the Director of the Center for Global Commons. Wonderful to see you, Noiko. I always see you quite a lot here during the forum. On my immediate left, I've got Hiroki Katano, Senior Executive Vice President, Chief Technology Officer, Chief Executive Officer of Sony Research and Sony Group Japan. Welcome. Going to his immediate left, we've got Laura Albert, President and CEO of Williams-Sonoma from the US. Welcome, Laura. And finally, we've got Levent Çırıkoglu, and I'm sorry if I'm not saying that correct. I have been practicing, my apologies, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Koç Holdings in Turkey. Welcome, all of you. We're going to start off with a panel discussion, a stakeholder dialogue. So I'm going to open the floor with what I think is a simple question, but perhaps a slightly more difficult thing to answer. So if each of the panelists could briefly share 2 minutes of opening remarks, really reflecting on the fact that 2023 was the hottest year ever on record. It was also a year of extreme weather. If we move into 2024, we're here at Davos, and that's certainly what we're all thinking about. But what are your main priorities? And how are these related to climate adaptation? And what role do you see technology playing? Noiko, if we can kick off with you.
Me?
Yes.
All right.
You look surprised. Oh, that's good. I'm off to a good start as moderator.
Right. Actually, the data are pointing to the fact that we may not be able to really achieve the 1.5 degree target, and which has a significant implication on some of the sectors which are deeply dependent on the nature, natural capital. Let me just pick up one example, like a food system or agriculture. And then right now, this community has been promoting the regenerative agriculture as a kind of solution to adaptation to this new science and the new data. But if the world we are going to is really meaning that there may be not much of soil, not much of the water, not much of the ecosystem, our proposal or the promotion of regenerative agriculture may be a clear example of maladaptation, and I'm really worried about it because there are 600 million smallholder farmers producing that 1/3 of the food we are eating, and we are putting a lot of risk that put them on a huge risk of maladaptation. So one point I really wanna, expecting this technology or data or that the scientists can do for them is to really let them understand what's coming, the comprehension that how we can really, we may need to change the programming or the strategy or planning, what kind of crops, where, when, how. So that's one point I think that we expect from them. The science, the data, the technology, and then thing. But another thing which I really want to ask them, or that they might expect from the technology or the data or the scientists, is how can we really construct a data set which will help us understand how to really measure the value of the natural capital, so that, as Gail, you said, it's not only just the risks, but also how to create the opportunity, the business opportunity. So if we have a good data set, we may be able to think the new strategy which address not only the risk factor, but also the business opportunity factor. So maybe my 2 minutes.
Great, great. So using technology both to share the data, the knowledge about what's happening now, in the future, risks, but importantly looking at the opportunity space. Levent, what's your perspective coming from a CEO of a large company?
Koç Group has a quite large, diversified portfolio, and we are very keen to utilize digital technologies and innovation to address the challenges arising from climate change. Through these capabilities, we have been able to design new products for our customers, and in the same time, we are creating efficiencies in our processes, which gives us additional capacity for competitive advantage, and also help us to meet our targets in our journey towards becoming carbon neutral by 2050. Having said that, water stress is one of the most important challenges arising from climate change. Considering Turkey's water stressed status,
exactly.
Implementing projects to increase water efficiency is quite imperative for us. This year, we will continue to use digital technologies to mitigate the effects of climate change, and especially focusing on water efficiency, and enhance climate adaptation in the entire value chain. We will also continue to upskill our colleagues for them to develop their own digital solutions towards climate adaptation.
Can you agree, but I'm interested, I know a little bit about what Coach does, and you've got some amazing concrete examples of how that digital technology you've been using in the last few years and moving forward. Could you, in water, for example, can you give us an exact example of how you're using digital technologies to really shift the dial? Because I know you're doing so much in that space.
I would be happy to share two examples. One of them is related to water efficiency in our power generation company, namely ENTEC. The objective is to produce more electricity with the same amount of water. ENTEC, in collaboration with one of our group companies again, Koç Digital,
yep.
initiated a project to achieve this objective. This project integrates an AI-based hydrology forecasting tool into our dam operations. One of the power plants of ENTEC is this hydropower plant in Ceyhan Basin. Ceyhan is one of the most fertile regions in Turkey, and the dam has two functions: power generation and irrigation. In that respect, this model considers 56 variables, including the basin structure, demographic trends, meteorological data such as temperature, humidity, snow depth, underground water levels, and finally, operational decisions by the neighboring plants. With the data used over the past 25 years, and this has enhanced our predictive capabilities significantly. In the end, the accuracy in water flow volume prediction has boosted up to 90%. Through precision predictability, we have been able to increase the power generation with the same amount of water. This is achieved by raising the overall height of the water in the dam safely, in a controlled manner. Each 1 meter additional height brings additional 1% productivity.
Perfect. So the technology that you've got, the digital technologies that you've been using data, as Noiko was saying, for the last 25 years, using prediction has had both huge savings in terms of efficiencies, but also in terms of water resources. So it's a win in terms of the larger ecosystem. So we'll park there for a minute. I'm going to switch over to Laura. Laura, another part of the world, a totally other sector, but you tell me, technology, how do you see that helping a climate adaptation from your perspective?
Sure. So I think I'm pretty sure everyone's aware Williams-Sonoma has multiple brands, including West Elm, Pottery Barn, Williams-Sonoma, some smaller brands. And we mostly do business in the United States, although we do business also in the Middle East and UK, Australia, but predominantly in the United States. We source our products from all over the world. I have been with the company almost 30 years, and I've seen the supply chain really develop in good ways and in bad ways. And the consciousness of watching that happen is, it's hard to put words to what I've seen. And I would say that before it was popular and in vogue to be caring about the environment, we did, because we would go into the factories where we did the work, and we'd go to Borneo and see the clear-cut coasts. And we said, we don't want to do business this way. And a group of us, many of whom are still with the company, decided that we'd make our mission to leave the world a better place, because we did business in it, and to improve people's lives at home as we produce very high quality, high-end home furnishings and furniture. And so because we are not selling cheap things, we can afford to do it right. And so we have made a decision to do that all the way through. And the challenges of the last several years with supply chain, COVID obviously, and weather have really made us work harder to make our supply chain resilient. And the types of products we make are not widgets, they're crafts. They are only made maybe in one place. Only one place has the capability to do it, so it's not easily moved around. You can't do a multi-step furniture finish in 10 factories in the world without a good 60 days of teaching, or glass blowing, or textiles, or embroidery. So it's not like in some mass manufactured way that we do business. At the same time, because it's craft, you really have to be aware of the working conditions. And we started some of the first fair trade in home furnishings, working in the rug business to bring that to light. And those things that we did are even more important now as heat in factories has gotten.
And so how is technology coming back to improve that mission?
Yeah, so
or make it more resilient?
So because of the challenges, right, where all of a sudden I find out, factories closed, there's a flood, there's this, there's that. How do we move things? And even in the United States, how do we ship goods successfully to customers? Because there's how you make a product, and there's how you move a product, and how you satisfy your customer. And we all go out of business if I don't satisfy the customer. So what we're doing now that's probably most notable to the subject that we're talking about is we are using AI to get the product to the customer in the most efficient way possible. When I say efficient, I mean, do you put two pieces together? Is it better to ship them separately because the type of products they are? We have 39 furniture hubs. We have several conveyable mail order operations. And figuring out what goes with what and delivered to what part of the United States with all the supply chain challenges is not a simple task. So we would do it with a group before.
So we're gonna move on. So if you just finish up with the technology, how that's helping you.
So now we're using AI to decide how to ship that product and what combination from a store, from a DC, from overseas. And while that may sound simple, it is not.
Thank you. Now, Hiroki, coming from the Sony perspective, technology's been in your bloodstream for a very long time. But how are you seeing that in the climate adaptation space and priorities for 2024?
Yes. I think we need to recognize we are dealing with the complex dynamical system, which our planet and also social systems. It's really intercouples all the natural systems and social systems, and we have to understand the dynamics behind it. And we need to deal this with a very systematic approach. In Sony, we work on the mitigations, adaptation, and regeneration. Those are the three pillars that we're working on. And in the mitigation, we work in the road to zero and the supply chain management, how we're going to reduce all the environmental impacts, also circular economy type of the recycling of the materials, and also talk about the reduction of the life cycle environmental impacts of our products and services. So that's all about mitigations. Then we talk about the adaptation, which is a relatively new thing that we are going in there. So where we consider that the sensing and the understanding of the anomalies or deviation from what we're supposed to be, and the prediction of what we're going to happen without taking any measure, or what will happen plan A, plan B, and plan C, and what kind of intervention we're going to have. So I think those are the three components of how we're going to manage the adaptation, because we have to understand, we have to predict and decide, and we have to intervene. And that's how we're going to go to adaptations. But the specific example is Sony is actually the largest sensor manufacturing company, particularly on an image sensor. We manufacture 60% of the global, the CMOS image sensor on the world. So that's our strength, and we have a range of sensor systems in our product line, also as in the R&D side. So we can deploy the sensor all around the world if possible. And then combined with the telecommunication system, for example, we have a low energy consumptions radio communication system, and we also have a laser-based satellite communication systems. We have a few systems up on the International Space Stations, and we tried out the constellations, like a low orbit, and terrain. So that enables us to reach out the sensor anywhere in the world if we deploy it. In a combination of the ground-based radio and the laser on the satellite. So that would be the infrastructure we can provide. The question is, then what is the maximum value we can provide from the technology platform? Is agriculture, where the farmer, we talk with the farmlands, and the farmers wants to adapt to the climate change, and we work with the government of Thailand and predicting the forest fire and early on the northern part of Thailand, and also we can work on the ocean side as well. My background is I'm computer science and AI, robotics, and large-scale computing. Also, I'm biologist working on the oncology, immunology, and coral reef. So, we have, I think we have a great opportunity to understand what's going on. So I think that's really the mechanism that we need to implement. We have technology. So the key issue for a company like Sony to go more, in a big way is, can we scale?
Yes.
And we make it sustainable?
That's the question. Exactly.
Okay. So, with technology, but it's not free, right? And technology can be made much more affordable by mass production, or get affordable technologies, for sure. But operation, deployment, maintenance, all the system, it have to be maintained properly. So that, and then have to do it, in a large scale, because we're talking about the global, global anomalies today. So how can we make it as a business and make it sustainable and scalable? We're working with the government. We're working with all the NPOs and all kind of stakeholders. But depends on the government funding or charity fund has limitations. Initial proof of concept, that's fine. When we got to the scale, we have to have the decent business model, and we invest on technology, invest on the deployment, so that can be scalable to make an impact on the climate adaptation in a large scale. And that's really the key.
That's really the key. So I want to come back to you, Noiko, and I want to also talk about emerging technologies and what the innovative space that you see or that you hope for in 2024 and beyond, also looking at scalable solutions, but bringing it into communities. So not just with scalable from a corporate perspective or a value chain perspective, but really bringing it down to people that are not necessarily on stage with us now.
Actually, the year of 2024 is so important because just 2 days ago here at Davos, that the TNFD announced that an early adopter of their new framework, whatever called, right? This means that actually the entire community, business community, that are actually expected to or required to really measure that the environmental impacts and the dependency of natural capital, and then together with, of course, that the carbon thing. So that what ideally want to see is that we were entering into this era of creating the public data infrastructure. That then it has to be open sources, it has to be affordable, it has to be comparable or interoperative and with a high quality. So that to me, how this technology, that the technology providers, mostly the big guys, can really help us to create this public utility space, the infrastructure, and meeting those maybe 4 conditions. That's a huge challenge. And the current thinking is that we cannot really aim at coming just to one big model or world, the world model. It's going to be more like a federated system reflecting the condition of each of the country or the region. But then the question maybe you are asking is, how does it really help for community, the smallholder farmers, SMEs, those guys can also use it. So that that's why those 4 conditions, affordability, the accessibility, actually usable and interoperative, and of course open sources is so important. There are a lot of technologies helping us that now we can remote sensing thing, but also the institute, the technologies on the ground, which really help us, actually help them to measure those environmental impacts, the stress on the ground. So this is going to be our job. I think that some who are interested in joining to create this open data the platform to really serve that those the needs, not only the big business, but also that the smallholders and farmers and community on the ground. It's always last 1 mile. It's so critical because and that's where I think that the capacity building or the public sector money should really go to help them to use it.
So digital technology, certainly at the community level, the society level, they need access, they need affordability. Open source is a great way to go. But is there not a tension with the C-suite when we start saying, how are you going to make money on something that's freely out there? So Laura Levant, how would you respond to that idea that communities need this stuff too? If we've got AI tools building resilience in supply chains or resilience to extreme weather or drought, communities want that too, but the technology companies want to sell it to make money. How do we balance that? Who wants to jump in?
Okay,
Please do.
I think open source is great, and then if data can be standardized, that will be even more powerful. We can aggregate data. At the same time, data itself may not generate a significant value. You have to process it. You have to make sense out of that. You're going to have data analysis. You're going to have AI, or you might add extra data on top of that to have a significant value additions. So all the tech company should be able to take advantage of the open source data. At the same time, where the money is, where the business come along is analysis and then advice or a means for the interventions.
Right.
So I think for open source data is great to understand what's going on, but it doesn't really solve the problem. We have to be able to intervene. We have to take actions.
Right.
That doesn't come from the data directly. We have to have some means, I don't know whether it's a biotech or a simple economical business, shift on the direction, adapting climate change. Some wineries buying land in upper north right now. Things like that. Some action needs to be taken to be adapted to the change.
Exactly.
And that part is, open source data in analytics will be able to tell us what to do, but that's a different thing as well.
Different, exactly. So Laura, I saw you nodding there. I think you wanted to add in.
I was just going to say, I think it's about leadership. I'm lucky to be on the Salesforce board. And although William doesn't sell technology, obviously Salesforce does. And when you see what they've done, that leadership is something other CEOs want to emulate. You know, the comment that Mark makes about, you know, that business is the greatest catalyst for change and progress. And it's so true, and watching him give away software wherever there's a need, whether it's for government,
Exactly.
whether it's for COVID, whether it's for climate change, and be the leader in something that absolutely might not seem related to what he's selling, but it creates that ecosystem that I believe makes people choose Salesforce over other companies that they could do business with because they're aligned with the values.
Exactly. So, Levant, coming back to you, you can jump in on this, and I also want to ask you, from your experience in the C-suite, how do you start mainstreaming across your business units, because you have so many different kinds of business units, this digital technologies that are building on climate adaptation? So how do you share learning across quite different sectors?
I will come to that point.
Yes.
But before that, if I may, I
Sure.
would like to complete what I started in the previous
Sure.
question. I have already mentioned about what technology has enabled us to increase power generation effectively, efficiently. And there is another aspect related to the community, and that is directly to the farming activities. With the rising population globally, the demand for water is growing every day. This need is even more significant in agriculture. 70% of fresh water is being utilized in agriculture globally. This rate is 77% in Turkey. Therefore, our focus on water efficiency is crucial in our operations. We have quite wide area of impact through our businesses. In the previous project that I mentioned, second aspect of the project is to safeguard the basin by preventing inadvertent water discharge through the spillways. Obviously there are assets, agricultural land, fish farms, and infrastructure. And if you discharge the water in an unplanned fashion, sometimes it flows directly to the sea without being utilized, neither in power generation nor in irrigation. So in combination, in collaboration of two companies, the digital technology developing company generated revenue by developing this tool, and water generating company has been able to increase efficiency in the business. The aspiration of the project is to reach 2.5 meters, which corresponds to a yearly electricity consumption of approximately 7,000 households.
So just to summarize that point, that you've got tremendous learnings because of the context in which Turkey is got water stress, and how you're using digital technologies to both mitigate but adapt, and looking at how do you broaden that beyond the specific context that you've developed in Turkey. I think that's absolutely critical. Can you give me one or two key lessons, though, on how you mainstream that we can learn in other contexts? So how do I move away from the specific water basin into the broader picture on climate adaptation, so that can be used all around the world?
This is, in our case, through our colleagues. Upskilling our colleagues is our utmost priority. Providing new competencies, new skills to them has been on top of our agenda. And we are empowering our colleagues from all disciplines, from all different backgrounds. So far, 1,600 of our colleagues have been graduated from our data literacy program. For example, a sales executive has become a data expert, and he has developed his own algorithm to address this business issue.
So data literacy, I love that, and I love the idea of learning how, especially as we move into the AI generation. I mean, this year at Davos, AI is everywhere. We see it in every pavilion outside on the promenade, in every session. That's different than 4 years ago, of course. So we're seeing that data literacy is key. But then broadening back out to the panel, I think the role here, especially if we're talking at getting to scale, has got to be collaboration. It's got to be partnerships, and sometimes unusual partnerships. So anybody have some examples that they want to say, this one seemed to really work, and I'm quite interested in hearing on that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Let me elaborate on a part I actually missed in the previous one, which is the regeneration, which actually data sharing is playing quite a significant role. What we're trying to achieve is the new kind of agriculture. So Uma Supply Sony has agriculture subsidiary called Sinico, and we do the operation in Sub-Saharan Africa and Latin America. Right now, we're working with the farmers and all the companies. And what we do is try to...
I just have a problem with the mic, so just one moment, please. Thanks. If not, we can move to handheld. I think we can move to handheld. It's totally fine.
No problem.
Thank you. Thank you. Very adaptable.
Yes, adaptation, right?
Adaptation,
okay.
right here
So,
in action.
Where am I? Okay, so what we're trying to do is we try to make agriculture robust against the climate change and then a high biodiversity agriculture. To do that, we need understanding of the micro-ecosystem design, and then we have a huge database of matching between the crops and the plants and then the soil, also what kind of insects they come in, and the prey-predator relationship with multiple insects. So therefore, we can design which crops and plant to be planted in a specific farmland and how we're going to balance out.
So we've got it. So I'm just interrupting because I know that we've got to get to partnership, and I want to open up to the audience.
Yeah.
So we've got a comprehensive ability to analyze and assess for regeneration, for adaptation, and of course mitigation.
And then we actually make it open source.
Exactly. Oh, you make it open source. Oh, that's great. That's good to know, audience.
Know-how and expertise and how to do it. So, because they have the open source, because we need more data. We need data from different places in the world. And that needs to be aggregated to be shared. Because if you look at all the agriculture, for example, in Japan, you harvest once in a year, right?
Yeah.
So for example, farming for 10 years, a 10 experiment. Okay, so we have to really aggregate. To have more data points.
Fantastic. So using the power of aggregation and open source. That's great. Does any of the other panelists want to talk to me about collaboration or partnerships and illustrate that? I'd love to have an example. Levant.
I'm happy to share the Fire-Ed project that we launched last year in Davos.
I like this project, yeah.
After devastating wildfires in Turkey 3 years ago, we started this project in collaboration with Ministry of Forestry in Turkey, and then we brought it up to World Economic Forum, and it was kind of an initiation project for the Tech for Climate platform. I'm happy to see that the platform has gone beyond wildfires, and this is again an AI-based decision support tool to assess the fire risk in different parts of Turkey. The objective is to mobilize the firefighting teams in the quickest way without jeopardizing their original regions. So it's important to mobilize the resources from the neighboring regions to the fire area, but without jeopardizing the original stations. And the accuracy in risk assessment forecasting has reached up to 80%. Still, the biggest risk factor is human behavior, and we have been putting different inputs into the model. The model again considers 400 different data.
I don't think, Levant, we have time to go into details of the model, but I do have to encourage everybody to check this out because it's a great example of collaboration, but also of coming back to Noiko's point about actually protecting communities and society and building resilience so that strong consumers, strong citizens can continue. So I totally agree. I love, and that's what I was looking for
One
at the
last
beginning.
sentence.
It's very short, and then I'm going to open up.
Okay, this is an open source again tool. We are happy to share it openly for free with the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fantastic. Questions from the audience. We've got mics walking around. If you can introduce yourself and ask your question in short snippets. Don't be shy. We've got one over here. Thanks very much.
Thank you all for your comments. One question I had is, a lot of the professional services firms are trying to orient their offerings around sustainability, AI, these other things. Do you, I mean, I'm listening to the examples that you've cited. It sounds like corporations would be capable of doing the kind of development of these cases on their own. Are professional services firms going to have any role in all this, do you think, or not?
Open question. What happens to those big professional services consulting firms?
I think you've got to be, the professional services world needs to know how people are specifically using AI to drive better process for sustainability in very specific domains. So they have to understand what the problem is. So for example, one of the biggest issues is waste, right? And returns and logistics. And it's you know, for me, all these things that we're doing are also good for profits. We want more back to shelf, less back to us. How do you make the product stick? And so if someone was really struggling in their startup, it'd be nice for them to know who to go to buy software from to help them with returns logistics, who's using AI to make those decisions to separate fraud from real returns and damages. And that's an area that's really open. It's a very big problem. You read a lot about it. It's very, you know, huge impact on environment. And I think, you know, that'd be a very specific case where I wish that there was not just, I don't just have to pay for it, but more sharing of which companies are using that so all boats can rise versus just having to pay a consultant.
Yeah.
You know, because, and so that's why these forums are good. So if you're a retailer, to talk about, okay, who are you using? Here's who I'm using, and versus seeing ourselves in competition, seeing ourselves as helping each other make a better world.
Thank you for that question. We have another question here.
Hi, Arvind. I'm the co-founder of Pano AI, company focused on AI to detect wildfires. There was a discussion around scaling, and a lot needs to be done. So if you just think about the year ahead, what is one thing that you think we could do in order to just accelerate the adoption, whether it be technology or initiatives more broadly?
A great question on scale, and let's go along. Noiko, let's see if you want to add something in. What one area do you think it would be useful to scale at?
To me, actually really creating this publicly available open source data set that which will serve, you know, that the measurement, but reporting and then the variation kind of thing. This is going to be the foundation for an entire community to move to not only carbon neutral, but also nature positive. And that is also the magic to the scalability of the whatever intervention you want to, the community does.
I see Hiroki's ready to talk. He's got the mic on.
Now it's very busy.
Now it's really useful. We can see it. Yeah, exactly.
Right. I think I don't think any single thing cover everything in terms of scalability, but one of the reasons all the carbon thing actually taking off is it became financial products. You can buy it over carbon credit and you can contribute. For example, some of the company may not have a direct means to reduce the carbon footprint by themselves, but they can contribute by having all the carbon credit. The other areas, for example, biodiversity or the natural capital, I don't think we have mechanisms to be able to, do the financials on that aspect. If you got like a biodiversity index, probably like any intervention, any means to increase the biodiversity, they can commoditize it. So we can have like an investment on that. If you got the brush fire or any of the high risk thing, and if you can index it, if we can commercialize it, that could be a potential mechanism to foster the investment. So I think like two things. One thing is like as we discussed actually yesterday, those early warning countermeasures in the vicinity of the high value properties, I think they have an incentive to pay for that. But like when you're talking about scale, we have to talk about the area which property value is not as high as we want it, to be able to, for them to be able to pay the service, but still very important, because those areas has a high biodiversity, very important because they're untouched, but still we have to protect it.
So I'm going to stop there. I'm going to move to Levent, and then I'm going to move to our closing question. Levent.
We have already seen the examples of how we have used technology to address climate change. This is a global problem, and we need to mobilize the institutional power, the governmental power to finance proven technologies to be utilized globally, especially by the emerging countries for free. I think this could be the solution, direct solution to address what we are struggling with.
Yeah, I think that's really good to actually bring in this idea. What is the role of policy, and especially both in a regional, local, but international setting? We are running out of time, and I know we've got more to say, but I'm going to ask each of the panelists 1 minute, and I'm going to keep you to that 1 minute. What have you learned from the other panelists today? So what aha moments do you have, and what are you going to take away? And I'm going to start with you, Noiko.
Actually, the valuation of, let's say, natural capital, human capital, to make the scale that Kitano-san pointed out. Actually, you also mentioned the efficiency thing. But if you are able to value the value of the water, it also creates a huge incentive to reduce that inefficiency. So to me, if we can have a comprehensive data set, and if we can use it to value the natural capital, human capital, society capital, then that it's going to be the good way moving forward. That's what I hear from panelists.
Levent.
I've seen great examples of how colleagues have deployed technology. Again, it goes down to collaboration. Public-private, private-private. There is an open source available. I'm curious to investigate further.
Thank you very much. Laura.
I love hearing that other people are working on things that aren't their core business, but that affect the environment and giving them away for free.
Yeah, very well said. Hiroki.
I think it's building ecosystem to protect ecosystem. The ecosystem means like open source, standardizations, and in all the value chains out of the ecosystem, the interventions, and all the financials. So, that we see the pieces now, how we put things together to create an ecosystem that can grow so that we can protect the real ecosystem.
I love that, building ecosystems for the ecosystem. Fantastic. Well, online audience in the room, thank you for your attention to new apps, technology for climate adaptation. I think for myself, the takeaways are coming back to what all the panelists were talking on, is that this is a real space to help mitigate risk, help move towards better adaptation, and also regeneration. And I loved hearing that. And the idea that we could really move to scale and share our learnings, and actually really, I thought there was quite an openness, which I was encouraged by, for this idea of open source, embracing business sustainability, but also really coming back to those communities that need this work. Thank you very much, and we hope the online audience shares some of their thoughts and reflections, and hashtag WEF24. Thank you.
Thank you.